The French are very proud of the fact that they were the last people to invade the British Isles. Hitler didn't make it beyond Calais, the Spanish Armada was swept into the North Sea, and even France's own Napoleon never managed to land more than a few bedraggled soldiers on British soil. William the Conqueror, on the other hand, not only invaded England, he grabbed the whole country and turned it into a French colony. However, as with so many things in the French version of history, this is not quite correct. Or, to be more precise, it is almost completely wrong. For a start, a Dutchman, William of Orange, successfully invaded Britain in 1688. But because this was a bloodless takeover, it could be argued that it was less an invasion than the response to a plea from the Brits to come and save them from themselves. More importantly, though, if you look at the facts of the Norman conquest in 1066, it becomes clear that France's claim to have launched the last successful cross-channel invasion is completely unfounded. It seems rather harsh to begin this book by undermining one of the core ideas in France's collective historical psyche, but it has to be done. My kingdom for a Norse. Before 1066, the issue troubling the inhabitants of what is now Britain was not, "Will I get a decent pension?" or "How much is my house worth?" It was more along the lines of, "When will a horde of axe-wielding murderers come charging across the horizon to rape the women and steal the cattle?" Or, in the case of certain Viking tribes, the other way round. If people didn't starve to death because of famine or pillage, if they managed to get the harvest in and have time to eat it, life was good. And to give themselves a reasonable chance of enjoying this luxury, what they needed most was a strong king, someone who would tax them half to death, but who might just keep them alive long enough to pay the taxes. A lot like modern governments, in fact. In the 9th century, Britain had just such a king, Alfred. By maintaining a permanent fleet and highly trained army, Alfred managed to keep England, or the portion he governed, up as far as the Midlands, free of Viking raiders. In fact, Alfred earned the title the Great because of the way he transformed these raids on Britain from violent treasure hunts into suicide missions. The upshot was that the Vikings, understandably frustrated at losing a sizable chunk of their income, decided to sail a few miles further south and pillage France, where much easier pickings were to be had. So easy, in fact, that the Vikings set up bases on the French coast from which to raid inland, sort of pillaging resorts. Soon the whole region was so unstable that the King of France was forced to pacify the invaders by ceding a large slab of territory to these men of the north, and in the year 911 the region officially became the country of the Norsemen, or Normandy. In short, Normandy owed its existence to an Englishman, who deflected invaders away from Britain and over to France. An auspicious start. In those days, the domain governed by the French king was little more than a collection of easily defendable duchies in the northeast of what we now call France, and the ruler was a puppet who could barely hold on to his own lands, never mind invade anyone else's. In fact, these kings didn't even call themselves French until more than 100 years after William the Conqueror, when, in 1181, Philippe Auguste first took the title Rex Franciae, King of France, as opposed to Rex Francorum, King of the Franks. And when one of these kings of the Franks did try to bring the troublesome Normans under his umbrella, it was with disastrous results. In 942, the Duke of Normandy, the formidable-sounding William Longsword, was assassinated and succeeded by a mere 10-year-old called Richard. Sensing weakness, King Louis XIV of the Franks decided to attack southern Normandy and capture Rouen, the major river port between Paris and the coast. But young Richard was not alone. He was supported by powerful clansmen with names like Bernard the Dane, Harold the Viking, and Sigtryg the King of the Sea, and the invasion ended in Frankish tears. Louis was captured and only released in exchange for hostages, one of Louis's sons and a bishop. In short, the Normans were issuing a clear warning that they had zero fellow feeling with the Franks, Burgundians, Lorraines, or anyone else in the country that would one day become France. They wanted to be left alone. All of which leads to a rather obvious conclusion. Despite what a modern Parisian might tell you, the Normans weren't French at all. Calling a 10th or 11th century Norman a Frenchman would have been a bit like telling a Glaswegian he's English, and we all know how dangerous that can be.